Hey, welcome to the Black Sheep Podcast. Today we are sitting down with Army combat veteran Mr. Rolando Zavala, who served from 2006 to 2013, deployed to Iraq and Afghanistan, was ultimately medically retired after a combat-related traumatic brain injury. But during that time, he received a Bronze Star with a V device. He was also a Purple Heart recipient. But this is not just another war story. This is about what happened after he came home from combat, after the war, some of the residual effects, such as PTSD, TBI, and family impact, and ultimately what he did to help his community and to reshape and rebuild mission through helping other veterans. So with that said, let's go ahead and get this started. So, Z, welcome to the
Yes, sir.
podcast. Welcome to the
brother.
podcast.
Thank you guys for having me. Thank you so much.
Yeah, of course. So, Z, first off, what made you want to join the Army, man?
So let's take it back, right? Growing up, grew up with the belief that I wanted to do more. I big into GI Joe as a kid, so I always looked at the military as I would say a calling, right? Something that I wanted to do. Throughout my childhood, it just kept popping in my mind. Once I was in high school, I actually tried to join the Marines on 2 separate occasions. Back in 2003, and I was denied because of eyesight. So I went, had LASIK surgery, came back a year later, and the Marines still wouldn't take me due to the LASIK surgery being a new procedure. So I tried to go to school and focus on the school life, but something kept calling me that I had to do more. Right. So come around 2006, finally I said, let me go see the other recruiters, and I ended up walking into the Army recruiter. And literally, I just said, you know what, I want to sign up, but I want something that's going to send me overseas so I can do what I can.
What
Gotcha.
what MOS did you end up joining with?
I ended up going 13 Bravo. I was originally trying to do infantry and then MP, but both of the jobs were sealed off at that time, so I ended up opting for artillery.
I feel your pain. When I went to the recruiting station, in reality, I came in, and if you looked at my medical or if you looked at my enlistment papers, a lot of it says Navy on it, ironically, because I went through MEPS to enlist in the Navy. And when I went through the whole process, I got to the final stage, and the guy said, hey, did anybody take pictures of your tattoos? And I said, no. So they took pictures of my tattoos, and they said, hey, man, you got too many tattoos. We're trying to clean up our image. So they denied me to go into the Navy, and just so happened that the Army recruiting station was next door. Walked into the Army recruiting station and said, hey, do you guys have any problems with my tattoos? Of course, the recruiters were like, no. I said, hey, stand by. Walked in, got my paperwork, came back, and had all my ASVAB scores, so gave it to them and said, what can I get? And they said, what do you want? I said, I want to do infantry. And they said, infantry's not available. And knowing what I know now, that was complete horse crap. But my credit at the time was complete garbage. So after telling them that, they said, well, you can't be at 13 Delta at the time, Juliet now. So I said, what else? And they said 13 Bravo. And I was like, send it. Let's go. So there it was, 13 Bravo. So
Well,
I
they're
feel
lost for sure.
I feel
They're lost.
Yeah,
for
I
sure.
got a question for you. And once you got done with the recruiter and everything, you're in basic training, you go to your first unit and everything. Were you the squared away guy, like truly disciplined all the way through? Or were you the guy getting smoked all the time and, like just trying to have a good time and, and then develop your leadership style later on?
No, I would say I was the rules kind of guy, right? The standing at attention, the stickler for the guidelines. That was me pretty much throughout my career, which as we get into it, which is what made it so sour at the end towards my end of my enlistment when that viewpoint shifted.
I understand. Okay. Because I'm always curious, like, hey, Because whenever I talk to a lot of soldiers nowadays, they're like, "Hey, I kind of messed around. I got smoked all the time, and then it was like I wasn't really focused on leadership. But then once I was in a leadership level, then all of a sudden I developed and was like, oh, I'm here, I'm in it. And a lot of guys don't even realize it until they actually deploy. So if you were already squared away, then it helped out your leadership, I'm sure. From the get go.
So
I didn't
what
need any more eyes on me than I already had. So,
I understand.
cross my T's, dot my I's, and then just kept it moving.
so what kind of when you initially came in, Z, what kind of leader did you envision yourself becoming?
When I came in, I didn't envision me as a leader. I was just envisioning me as taking everything in, right? Luckily, in my first duty station, I ran into a NCO. His name is Staff Sergeant Kendall, who set the standard for what I felt an NCO should be. Not only because he was at the top of his game in the artillery field, but the way he advocated and treated and cared for his soldiers
Yeah,
and fought for them against the administration. That's where it cemented in me what a leader should be and what I should strive for.
yeah.
What was your first duty station?
I was out in Fort Hood. 30CR had just transitioned over from Fort Carson, Colorado. They were establishing them down in Fort Hood around 2000 and summer of '06.
So we've all had similar experiences in combat, and we all know that experiences may vary when you go down range. So you have some people may spend most of their time on the boardwalk, and they may never have to go across the mountain, and they may never have to actually see face to face combat. And hey, that's nothing against them because they're doing the job that they were asked to do, and their job is critical to the guys that are across the mountain, so no hate against them whatsoever. With that being said, how was your first experience, like, when you went down range to Iraq?
So Iraq was a whole different scenario. We were just pretty much doing kind of like you guys were, rock clearance, presence patrol, meeting with the elders and whatnot. We did do some counter fires. So we actually did our role and provided some terrain denial and some elimination while they were doing some assaults. But most of it was just riding around in the MREPs. And we lost two individuals. One was a individual that we lost, Specialist Morris, to a EFP, explosively formed projectile, copperheads that form and penetrate the armor. And the other gentleman his name was Sergeant Unruh. So that one was a little bit of the survivor's guilt because I was supposed to be in his position as a gunner. And literally right before they rolled out the gate, they had me stay because I was completing a memorial for the other people we had lost in the unit, and they were having that dedication that day. So they're like, you need to stay so you can finish that memorial. We would place you on the patrol.
Right.
And an hour later, we got word that that patrol vehicle had rolled over and they crushed the guy that took my spot.
Yeah.
His name was Sergeant Gregory Unwood.
Yeah.
So that was the amount of interaction we had as far as hostile interactions and losses. So way different than once we got to Afghanistan.
Yeah. So for
So,
those who are tuning in, who may not know, with everything going on in the world right now, just um, FYI, just kind of for your self awareness, a lot of those EFPs that were being made were coming over the border from Iran. So just for your own knowledge, take that for what it's worth. But a lot of the IEDs, a lot of the ammunitions that were hitting our soldiers in Iraq were coming across from Iran. So that's something to keep in mind throughout this whole thing that's going on in Iran
so,
right now.
so in Iraq, you had constant IED attacks. Like, how
Yeah,
many
in
would you
Iraq
say?
we
Like,
had
I mean, I'm pretty sure it was
IEDs.
always on the route and everything else, like, "Hey, we're route clearance is gonna be up ahead, and we're gonna go through, and we're gonna make sure that the route's clear and everything." The threat was always there, but how did that change, like, your mindset after weeks and months and, you're constantly doing this, how was that something that you were able to deal with? And also be able to share with not only your peers, but also your leadership and, to kinda get people like, "Hey, it's not just another day, we gotta be on top of our game."
I would say that that's kind of when realization hit you that you had to be mindful that any day could be the last, right? Especially the ferocity that the IDs were being placed at that point, where double stack, triple stack, 155 round and whatnot, because they were getting through the up armored Humvees. They finally figured it out, so they were just stacking them on top of each other.
Yeah, they
So as
daisy
far as the
chained them as well.
right, so as far as the mindset was always on edge, right? Your nerves were on end 24/7. Um, there was a couple of our luckily at that point we were making the transition from the Humvees into the MRAPs when they
Mhm.
first came out.
Yep.
So we made the transition shortly after getting to country, and thankfully so, because after that we started hitting more of the IEDs. And if it had been in the older Humvees, we would have taken a lot more casualties. It sucks to say, but thankfully all we took at that point was TBIs from then on, because people were getting hit and the vehicles were getting damaged, wheels blown off, engine blocks blown off, but the people inside the vehicles were still able to walk.
Yeah. Yeah,
Obviously,
I
their bells were
understand.
rung and eardrums busted and whatnot, but they were still alive.
So what year was, Iraq, Z?
We did the surge, the 15-month deployment. So from November of '06 until January of '09. And once we started experiencing those IEDs, that's when I was introduced to the whole TBI, right? When I started seeing my leadership and my other soldiers that were hit start to exhibit those symptoms with the migraines and the memory lapses.
Yeah, yeah. So, let's fast forward a bit, and we will jump into 2010. So, let's jump into the Arghandab River Valley. So, talk to me about Cop Nolan.
I got to I got to Cop Nolan July 4th, I think, right? It was surreal. I mentioned to you, you talked about it in the book. As we're getting off the MRAP and walking into the compound, it's witching hours that they're being attacked, RPGs, everything's hitting the compound walls, and just dumbfounded that that was our welcome. After they quelled the attack on the base, we went back out to do a clear the route so that the truck can go back to T-node. And then once they were going back, is that other picture when the vehicle was completely shredded. And I think Sergeant Mack and somebody else, Sergeant Robertson, got hit. I think that's when it was, right on Route Phillies.
Yeah.
So, I mean, day one, it was like, hello, welcome to the Arghandab. Hold on tight,
Yeah, it's a
and
famous picture of Captain Khabib.
yeah. Yeah. And then from then on, it was just every day, literally every day, you could count it from 4 or 5 o'clock all the way to 7 o'clock. Once they got the praying done, without fail, they would be hitting our compound.
Yeah.
Was, Afghanistan, in your eyes, different from Iraq?
Day and night. In Afghanistan, I always say the guys came to fight. They came to play for keeps, right? Everybody in that area, you could pretty much feel that you were not welcome. You walk around and all the military age males and whatnot are staring you up and down, and you can just, when you're in that environment, you know who it is that's not supposed to be there, right? So it was tense interaction with all of the villagers because everywhere around us, some were happy of having us, but the hostility was very evident in everybody that we ran across.
I mean, Afghanistan's been at war since when Alexander the Great was over there, I mean, they I think that they just they refuse to just, be like, "Hey, we're at peace at all," you know, they just wanna fight all the time. So I 100% understand and agree with that. So you're sitting there at Argendab and then, you're hanging out and then the mortars start coming in. And so walk me through that. Let me know and everybody else know what was going through your mind and things. And were you just trying to make sure that you were good? Were you trying to make sure that the group was good? Were you, just kind of give me some ideas.
So they're referring to the incident where I was hit. Yeah. So we had by then we were already on the hunt for this white buffalo, right? We called it the white buffalo. It had a 60 millimeter mortar that had hit Nolan. It had hit Tino, caused some casualties in Tino. I think even Sergeant Major Barrios got hit by some of the shrapnel. Tino got hit. They sent us out to this village called NMK, Nor Mahat Kalache, I think it's called.
Yeah.
It was no more than 200 meters from Cop Nolan. We could see those buildings from our building, right? You could pretty much throw a rock at it. But that distance was, I'm talking about, inundated with IEDs. Just walking from Nolan to there, we found 22 IEDs just in that pass. Once we got to the compound, it was evident that it was a bed down spot for them because, again, the hostilities came that the moment we took that first compound for the day, we started getting probed. We started getting probed. So we went out, had a couple of skirmishes, came back in, bedded down for the night. And then the next night, same thing. We went out, took some contact, came back, and we were discussing patrols for the later on in the day and setting up guard towers and whatnot. And I remember it was lunchtime because I looked at my clock on my watch as I was going up to my guard shift. And there's a picture I shared with Fontenot where I took a picture of the two guys that were on guard right before I went out there. And in that same position that they are in that picture is where we were when we took the hit. So from my recollection, I was scanning with binoculars, talking to the Grata who was with me, PFC Grata. And as I was scanning from left to right, saying, make sure you take notice of where we were getting, as soon as I said shot, that's the last word that came out of my mouth. I just felt a heat wave and like I got smacked by Mike Tyson or a bat or something across the right side of my face. I just felt a heat wave from the blast. Next thing I know, I come to and I'm several feet back from where I was standing. And so is Grata. And we have Staff Sergeant Chavez checking on us. And it was surreal because as this incident was happening, I was recalling a scene from Saving Private Ryan when he first lands on the beach and he gets hit and his ears are ringing and he can see everything, but he can't hear nothing. So that's what I was experiencing. Chavez was doing his buddy checks, talking to me, and I was like, bro, I don't know what you're saying. On top of him talking to me, over him, you see RPGs hitting the walls, bullets hitting the walls, and everybody else had jumped up on the walls to return fire. My concern, off the bat, I recognized that it was the mortar that hit us. And as everyone knows, mortar rounds come in groups, right? So I was expecting the next round and then the next round just keep going in that same pattern. And it would have been a catastrophe because we were all up on the roof at that point. Whether it's because we returned fire right away and the birds came on station right away, the follow-on shots never came through. And I can't thank whoever it was enough for that not happening.
When after everything was done and you realized that what had happened, firefights calmed down, the mortar rounds are done, you're just kind of sitting there. When did you realize that something wasn't right, like with you or like that you were actually hurt? Because I
After
mean,
everything was
TBI is a
done,
real hurt
that's
also.
the same thing. That's the same incident where Sergeant Strickland was hit.
Mhm.
He went out to flank the guys that were hitting us, and he was hit with an RPG blast. So when they called the medevac, as we were waiting for the medevac, my head was just
Ring.
pounding like never before. My ears were still ringing. I was still having a hard time seeing things straight.
Sergeant Strickland was the squad leader of the infantry squad that was attached, right?
No, he was team leader. The squad leader was Staff Sergeant Chavez.
Okay, got it.
Um, So yeah, I was sitting there just holding my head like, what the, is wrong with me? And we had Lieutenant Babcock. Who I owe him everything because he just took one look at me, said, "Look at me." He said, "You got a fucking TBI. We need to get you out of here." If it hadn't been for him saying that, I would have stayed where I was and not acknowledged it or had it tended to.
And I also think that a lot of people don't understand that TBI, even though that it happened to you right then, and then you get back, and then you're hanging out, but now that you're out, it still stays with you. It's not like you left that on the battlefield. Can you kind of walk me through what maybe a bad day looks like?
I'll
If
take
you
it
still
through a
get
regular
ringing in
day.
the ears and things like that.
I'll take it through regularly. So I joke with everybody that before 9 o'clock, I'm no good to nobody because it's been all night. It's like a fight to sleep, right? Um, when I go to sleep, it feels like I'm going into a championship fight. I look at the bed and it's like, fuck, here we go again. Right? Because I know terrors and everything that's going to come at night, and the sleep and whatnot. So when I wake up the next day, my head is in that same phase of after I got hit, where it's just disoriented, fogged up, pounding, and that's every day. So it takes me that morning some time to adjust and settle that down before I can get on with my day, regardless of what it's going to be. For a worse day, for a horrible day, I lock myself in my room, lights off. I don't eat. I don't drink. Windows shut down. My head is pounding. I'm regurgitating even the water I'm drinking. Uh, it's horrendous for me, and not so much horrendous for me, but that my kids and my spouse see it. Uh, and then they're like, "What's wrong with you? There's nothing we can do for you."
So
So,
when
and
you're
go ahead.
Z, when your kids start asking you what's wrong or why you're crying or things like that, how does that impact you as a dad?
First time I heard him say it, it hurt me. I was going through one of my bad bouts, and I just started crying. And my kids were like, "Why is Dad crying?" And it was just that's how intense the pain was. And ever since they were little, and after that incident, I've done my best to try to explain to them what we've gone through, what the incident did, and how that affects me nowadays. So they know Dad has his bad days, he has good days. They know what helps me out. They know check up on me. They know sometimes I need that space. And when I do have my outbursts, sucks to say, but they kind of understand, okay, well, Dad needs a minute. Let's give him some space. Or I tell him, you know what, yeah, I need some time. I need to back away and come back to you. So thankfully, I've been able to open up with them. And a lot of that I have to attest to the social work program that I went through for me to understand what I was struggling with and then share that with them.
But what social group was that?
Say again?
What social group did
Oh,
you
I,
go through?
I, I did my undergrad and my master's in social work.
Okay. And
So I
then
just finished
that
my
really
master's in
helped you
social
out,
work
and
in 2024. I just finished it.
okay, that's awesome, man, congratulations.
Thanks, man.
You also stated something that was pretty real. You said that struggling soldiers become liabilities. Can you break that down?
Yeah. So, like I said, going from the go-to guy to the liability guy.
Yeah.
So throughout the rest of the deployment, going back to continue to answer your question, I felt things were not right in my head. Right. Again, obviously every day my ears were ringing, my head was pounding, nauseous every day, forgetting things left and right. So throughout the rest of the deployment, I was just out of it. The best way I can put it to somebody is so they can kind of understand it is like if you're dealing with the hangover all day, every day. Uh,
That sucks.
so I still performed like I had to all the way through the deployment. I was still doing what I had to. So the incidents that transpired and where it started to spin out of control was I was one of the last ones that took leave on the deployment right around Christmas time frame. And they just plucked me from our combat outpost and set me straight on leave, right? On leave, I had some family issues. I reached out to the leadership. I asked for an extension due to family issues. My mom was sick. I got word through online, yes, your leave has been extended. At the same time, I'm coordinating with rear detachment at Fort Campbell to put me on the next flight. So I'm continuously contacting my leadership that's in country through emails and rear D over the phone, right? Actively arranging my return after the extension. The day before I go back, I get a call from Captain Abisher, who tells me, hey, you know what? Hey, congratulations, your Bronze Star with V device was just approved. By the way, you need to get back ASAP because you're AWOL. And I said, what the, right? What do you mean? He's like, yeah, you've been AWOL for about a week now. So long story short, I go back to Cop Nolan, and they start trying to run the Article 15 and whatnot. At that point, we had just switched commanders, so we got rid of Captain Thomason, and we had Captain Rubio, I think his name was. Like, he came in right when I left, so I didn't even know him, nothing. I came back, they put me through the ringer of the Article 15, and again, rules and guidelines. So I documented everything from the moment I left Cop Nolan. I had emails, I had everything. Where I lost my faith in the leadership is when they went around the line and they asked everybody, did anybody counsel him before he left? Everybody said no. Nobody gave me a counsel. All right. Okay, who did he have contact with you guys? I said, yes, here's the proof. And I showed it to him. But then he goes around asking all my leadership, what should we do? What do you think about him? And Sergeant Strickland and Sergeant Chavez were there. They vouched for me. Sergeant Boxley, I believe, was there, and he vouched for me. But then they get to Captain Rubio, who didn't know me at all, right? Prior to going into this Article 15, he said, I know all about you. I'm standing right behind you, 100%. No matter what happens, we're behind you. So the moment they got to him, he literally slammed his hand on the desk and said, fuck him. He's an NCO. He knows better. Throw the book at his ass. And that just, that.
And that came from a leader that wasn't even there for any part of it.
Say again?
It was
Yeah,
a leader that wasn't there for any part of it. And
yeah,
all of a sudden he just came in and said that he
Correct.
was good with you, and then waited till you stood on the red carpet and then threw you under the bus. I hate to hear that.
But again, because I had my T's crossed, my I's dotted.
Yeah.
All
It
they
all
were able
worked
to
out in
do
your
was
favor.
say, write a letter saying why an NCO should be accountable for his time. They couldn't do nothing else to me.
Yeah. So,
well, thankfully that, you had people that were able to vouch for you and stand in your corner, and that didn't go completely left of center. You were able to kind of get it reeled back in. So when you when you came back home, man, obviously when you were home after everything happened, you started noticing that you were having issues both with, PTSD from TBI. Sounds like maybe even, survivor guilt from what happened in Iraq even. So what are some of the things that you feel maybe worked or didn't work during your recovery?
So when I first got back to Campbell, again, I knew something was not right in the head. So I took it upon myself. I tried to ask the leadership, I need to take care of this. But as we all know, once you get back from deployment, it's about 100%. Start training, start going to the field for the next deployment.
Yeah.
So again, reading guidelines, I knew that at this point, they were taking appointments seriously. So appointments could not be superseded by anything, regardless. So our leadership kept trying to force us to cancel appointments, saying you need to be at training, you need to be out. Like, no, you cannot do that. I had to fight them bring out regulations to them, show them this is the new regulations. I am not going. I need to attend to these appointments.
Was this prior to us losing Sergeant Junkin and Sergeant
Yes.
McCorkill?
Yes. This is literally right after we got back. This is right when we got back. I went straight to TBI office and came back and started vouching, advocating for myself and the other vets or the other guys in our unit, which was Sergeant Strickland, Sergeant Wilkie. The other guys that I knew were affected as well by TBIs. And at that point is when I shifted from trusting the leadership to they're going to screw me over, because they literally said, now you're the piece of shit, because now you're at appointments all day long. So you went from being the reliable guy to a liability because now you're at the doctor all day long. Right. And it's like, no, I can still come back. I just need to tend to these appointments in between whatever we're doing.
Right.
And then at that point, long story short, is I tried to reenlist. They weren't letting me reenlist. I tried to reclass. They were downsizing, so they had closed everything out. And they said the only option is for you to reenlist in 6 months out from ETS. Well, that makes no sense. Why would I wait till 6 months and maybe reenlist if you don't even know if it's going to be open? So I shifted and I asked for a med board at that point. Again, because I just knew I could not be as effective in that position with everything I was struggling with. I couldn't put myself in that position and the Joes that I would be managing.
Yeah.
And then there was the other step in the face when I brought the paperwork saying they agree. They want you to file a med board for me. They grabbed my packet. I forgot who it was in the platoon office. They grabbed my packet. They said, you want a fucking med board? They threw it at me. You figure it out yourself. We're not med. So at that point, I cut sling load and all my attention shifted to med boarding myself and all the other guys that they were trying to kick out that were having troubles.
So it's basically like, hey, you're not at 100%, so we don't need. If you either you're here, you're 100%, or you can figure it out, and we're not going to help you out anymore.
You're a liability for us. You're taking up space. If you want something done, you figure it out yourself.
And then once you actually got the med board through, what happened from there? How long did it take for the med board process and you to be able to get out?
I started the med board summer of 11, and I had to fight it all the way through December. I got approved December of 2012. So luckily, again, reading rules and regulations helped me out. I was able to, I would say, streamline the process because people were waiting 2-3 years for that whole process. So between the summer of 11, December of 12, I was approved and I was out by March of 13.
That's good. That's good.
So once you
At the
once
same
you
time, I
grad-
was able to
go ahead.
I was going to say I was able to successfully med board myself along with a couple of the guys that they were trying to kick out.
So once you were able to transition, what made you decide that you wanted to go into helping other people and go into social working?
As mentioned, that experience towards the end where they were kicking people out for being overweight. Like, we just got back from deployment. How are you going to kick somebody out for being overweight and not passing a PT test, right? You got to give them a chance.
Yeah.
They were obviously exhibiting behavior issues related to TBI. And at that point, I was reading about TBI, how that affected your behavioral and everything else.
Right.
And they told me, you figure it out. That was it for me. That's when I said, you know what? I'm shifting my focus from that to caring for the guys that need it. So when I got out, I was still looking for that opportunity, but I didn't know where I could do it. I ran into my first social worker. His name was, I just saw him too, Jeff Stieber at the VA. So I ran into him. He met me and I was like, look, dude, I want to do what you're doing. I want to help vets get their life straight after they get out. And he's the one that said, why don't you look into the social work field? You know, this is kind of what we do. So I took advantage of the voc rehab, BRE. I went to school and I started taking some of the basic social work classes and psychology classes. And in those classes, everything started clicking as far as what I had gone through and what I was struggling with. And it started clicking. And once that clicked, and I saw how that a social work career is technically the same thing you do as an NCO, because as a social worker, you're connecting the person to resources, you're checking on them and see how they're doing, how their families are doing. You're integrating them to their communities, to their jobs, wherever the case may be. So I took a step back and I said, that's exactly what an NCO does in the army or in the military, right? They integrate new, uh, they integrate new service members. They integrate their families. They connect them to community services or on-base services. And that's when everything started falling into place for me. And
Right.
I said, this is the career for me.
Good stuff, man. Being retired now, I have a gentleman by the name of Ivan that's reached out to me several times, man. He's been pretty clutch. He works up at the Houston VA, and he's been pretty clutch for me, man. So what you're doing as far as social work is definitely a great feel, man. So kudos to you for getting involved in that. I know veterans definitely need that extra assistance and that extra person looking out for them on the back end.
For sure. I
So
enjoy it
what?
because I get to help them put words to what they're struggling with, right?
Yeah,
As a vet, we have a hard time articulating what symptoms we're going through because of that, because we're stuck in that phase of struggling with those symptoms. So we don't know how to articulate them. We just let them out with aggression or through negative coping mechanisms or risk inducing behavior, right? A lot of different things that we use to mask it. So when I'm able to sit down and make them understand that those behaviors are in part because of what they went through, you literally have them sit back and say, oh shit, nobody has ever explained it to me like that.
right.
Right. Or one of the things I do is when I meet with the vet, first thing I ask them is obviously branch, MOS, year served, duty station served, if and when you deploy. And the reason I ask those questions is because that gives me 80% of the history and what they may be struggling with. And when I start naming out some of the things that they may be struggling with, and that's I'm like, yeah, that's exactly what I have been struggling with, and nobody has been able to understand or believe me.
So with like we've kind of hit on the fact that, obviously veterans struggle with different issues. Not everybody's big on going to group therapies. Not everybody's big on talking to counselors and things like that. So what are some of the non-traditional therapies that, veterans could do, like even just do outside, like do, on their own, to just kind of focus themselves or refocus themselves on just kind of healing?
I'm a big believer in recreational and social therapy is what I refer to it as. And what that means is recreational, anything that that person themselves finds that helps them, right? Whether it be hunting, whether it be biking, whether it be swimming, any kind of physical recreational activity. It could be painting. It could be anything that they find that calms them.
Yeah.
That is a form of therapy that they don't often highlight, right? Because they think of therapy as going to the VA and doing actual physical therapy or going to one-on-one sessions and working on your PTSD and whatnot.
Yep.
And it all works, but it's not a one cookie cutter solution to everybody, right? And sometimes by placing these individuals in these other activities that are distracting the mind, they get a lot more benefit because they're open. They're not highlighting the fact that they're there. They're just embraced in the moment and things start to come out,
Yeah.
especially if you combine it with the social therapy and you bring a group of vets or like-minded individuals, and then they just start talking to each other. And that's when everything starts coming out, the resources, the struggles, how to help each other articulate what they're struggling with, the support.
Yeah. So I can tell you that one of the things that I've noticed since I've been out that's been beneficial for me, you mentioned using your support network and talking with other veterans. And so like something as simple as going shoot pool at the VFW has been kind of clutch. We've been going out and just kind of just going shoot pool this past weekend. We had a crawfish ball at the VFW, and there's a lot of resources that I think that veterans don't realize that the VFW offers, such as having VSOs out there. American Legion, same thing, have VSOs that they can help you with claims and help with different resources. And I think people overlook the fact that they have those opportunities there. So if I think if people, especially veterans, understood that they have those resources available, the VFWs and the American Legions and DAV would be a lot more of a valuable resource to them. And maybe we can get our GWAT veterans more in tune to, utilizing these resources. So what are your thoughts on that?
What I've come across is typical, right? A veteran, I explained it to him, a veteran could just got hit by a mortar, could have hit by an IED, they could have just been shot. And you ask a vet, how are you doing? What are you going to say? I'm
Good.
good. Let's keep going. Right. And I understand it. And I tell them, I understand that. And I praise you for being able to keep going. But let me have you take a pause and don't do it for yourself. These services have now been expanded to the families, which includes the kids, the spouse, the parents, and the siblings of the veteran. Because they understood that when the veteran comes home, the family and their loved ones ends up struggling with what is known as vicarious or secondary trauma, where they start to exhibit the same symptoms that the veteran did: hypersensitivity, hyperarousal, aggression, depression, anxiety, all that stuff. They start to mimic everything that the veteran, right? Because they start to feed off of him.
Yeah.
Like I reckon it to a tuning fork, right? When you tune a fork and then you bring another one close to it, it's going to pick up that same vibration. So once I explain that to them and then tell them, look, don't connect for you, at least connect to these services so that then your family can come up behind you and follow up with all these services. And once I place it to them in that perspective, they're like, I never thought about my family needing that help or those resources.
Yeah. Well, we're getting towards the end of our session here. One of the last things I wanted to touch on is, we had talked about service animals and your connection to service animals. So what kind of feedback can you give our listeners and our viewers on what resources that they can find on?
I can share the resources to you offline in the email, and then that you can share them as you need to. But the information on service dogs is plain and simple. A service dog is considered a piece of medical equipment, just like a wheelchair, just like a cane or an oxygen tank. It is not an animal. It is a piece of medical equipment. Service dogs, legit service dogs, are covered by ADA federal guidelines, which covers them and it covers the handler. That means they can go anywhere they need to go except for a sterilized area, i.e. operation room, back of the kitchen area, stuff like that, for obvious reasons. Other than that, they can pretty much go with you anywhere. There is no need for the service dog to have a vest that says it's a service dog. There is no need or requirement. There is no legal IDs that are made for service dogs, identifications. So please don't buy those offline. Those are all false. A service dog does not necessarily have to go through a service training organization, because there are a lot of individuals that can train their dogs to the level that they need them to be. And that is what is known as a owner trained service dog. Right. These organizations that do offer the services operate at no cost to the veteran. And it's just a matter of connecting the vet to the organization, making a good match, and then continuing the training from there. The veteran can approach these organizations with their own dog and inquire if they can train their dog. If the dog is a fit for the program, then they will take the dog and train their personal dog. If not, then they will advise that you get a dog from the program itself.
Yeah, it's great, man. I appreciate that information.
That's really good.
James, what do you got for closing, my friend?
Man, I really appreciate you today, Z. And, I already read through your bio and everything, but to hear it come from you directly is it's a whole lot more. And also to be on the aspect of truly understanding, like whenever you're saying the things that are going on, and I can actually feel them, because I've been there myself and truly understand everything, man. And I really appreciate you sharing absolutely everything, and what I think that a lot of people don't understand, especially in your situation, is it's not about the war, it's about the aftermath, and what comes after that that you have to live with every day. And there's several other people that are currently out here that are in the same situation that all of us are in, and we're just looking for a little bit of guidance because we had guidance whenever we were in, and now that we're out, we're kind of on our own, and you're just reaching for straws. So I truly appreciate what you brought to the table today, and squaring everybody else away.
Thank you guys for, again, putting yourselves out there and this platform to help others understand what they're going through and make sense of everything, right? Life during, after, and the transition that goes on for life. So before I sign off, I will say two books that were very huge in my development were one that is called What Happened to You, and the other is called The Body Keeps a Score. And
What was the
I,
authors
the first one is What Happened to You.
and the author of it? Do you know?
Oprah Winfrey is part of that author.
Okay.
And the other one is The Body Keeps a Score. I can't think of the doctor, but I'll send Fonzie the links to it.
You
So
had
those two books.
also you had also referred me to a couple of I want to say it was Netflix movies
Yes.
on alternative treatments for medication for post traumatic stress, I believe,
Yes, there
and
has
and TBI. So if you don't mind sharing those with our
sure,
viewers.
sure, sure. There has been a huge push in research on the holistic side of medicines, right, to help treat signs of TBI, PTSD, trauma. And there has been huge success with veterans that have taken substances such as psilocybin, MDMA, or ibogaine under watchful eye of clinicians and whatnot. And these two documentaries that Fonzie is referring to is How to Change the Mind is one of them. It's on Netflix. And the other one is War Water, something like that.
No, the Netflix documentary in Waves and War.
And Waves and Water. There you go. And Waves and Water. And both of them talk about how veterans, in this case, special operations um, soldiers or veterans, are using these holistic medicines to make breakthroughs in PTSD, where they have discussed one or two treatments has completely, I don't want to say healed, but has helped them out tremendously, where they can finally say, I know what I need to do. I know what was wrong with me. I know what I was struggling with. Um, the VA is starting to look at that possibility and the research behind it and whatnot, I think, as well as other organizations. I know states are trying to legalize the use of psilocybin so that they can keep increasing the studies. But there has been significant progress and results on the veteran side with PTSD, TBI, and trauma and holistic medicines.
And I also think that something as simple as a routine can also help you out through a lot of things. A lot of people just don't realize that when they wake up and they're sitting around the house, and and they don't have a stable routine, because we had all that in the military, and you can get up, you can go to the gym, you can do but if you're going to go do it, you're going to do it every day.
Yes,
Some people just will wake up and they'll just sit there, and then they'll be in their head all day, and then next thing you know, it goes down a rabbit hole. So good information all the way around. I greatly appreciate it, Z.
that is so true. You definitely have to keep your mind busy, because if you don't keep it busy, it's going to get the best of you, and you're
It'll
going to
go
lose
away
the little
from you.
bit of information that you have in there, right? That's one of the reasons why I went back into the working field, because my wife and my kids asked me, you were retired, why are you going back to work? And I explained to them, it's so I can keep my mind active. The information I have, I can share with others, right? And it shows my kids that you get up, you fall down, you get up, you keep going, right? You find a different outlet, and you keep help going and doing what you can to help others.
Absolutely. Well, Z, thank you for being here. For those who tune in to our first podcast, we appreciate you taking the time to check us out. We are the Black Sheep Platoon Podcast. We will be coming back again real soon. We have Mr. George Fuller as our next guest. He has a great program called Ruck and Run, and he will be our next guest that will be coming up soon. I'm going to leave you with a couple of really good thoughts for you to take with you. 1, loyalty is rare. When you find it, protect it. Super important. Loyalty is rare. When you find it, protect it. 2, some bridges need to be burned so you don't cross them again. Not everybody is meant to come with you. That's just the way it is. Black Sheep Platoon, we're here until Helen Keller shoots 40 out of 40, baby. That's just the way it is.
Yeah.
Stick with us. We'll be around. Thanks for tuning in.
You guys have a good one, man.
Thanks,
Thanks,
brother.
E.
You too.